So, what is a software developer? You might think, well, duh, a software developer is someone who writes code, but it's actually not that simple. If I had to come up with a metaphor for this, it's kind of like serving spaghetti at a restaurant, okay? In the easiest, most ideal scenario, a customer orders spaghetti, you make spaghetti and give it to them. That is not what software development is actually like. What it is actually like is, okay, you want to make the spaghetti for them, but then you realize that your kitchen assistant didn't make the meatballs. So now you have to go make meatballs, but then when you go to fetch the ingredients, you realize that you ran out of meat and the Parmesan cheese is spoiled. So now you have to run out to the store and buy the ingredients for the meatballs, but then you realize that you don't have enough in the budget to buy the ingredients for the meatballs, and so now you have to run back to the customer and explain to them why their spaghetti won't have meatballs in it. That is what software development is actually like. And so when people say that software development is really problem solving, that is a true statement, okay? It's working through situations like that, trying to figure out how to solve this exact issue, not just in code, but outside of code as well. How do I do this with this team member? How do I interface my part of the application with that part of the application? That is software development. And so people who think that it's just sitting down and writing code for 8 hours a day or more, that is an incorrect assumption, okay? In fact, I would dare say that for most software engineers, you only spend a few hours of the day actually writing code. The rest of the time is spent on meetings, strategizing and architecting and designing with team members, working through the problem in your head and trying to come up with a pseudo solution before you actually code it, fixing tests, etc. Having said all that, what is software engineering then? Well, software engineering is similar to software development, but it's software development on steroids. In particular, software engineers are equipped to solve computationally intensive or sometimes mathematically intensive problems. Where you're solving creative problems generally as a developer, you have to do that as an engineer, and you have to think about solving for performance and scale. A good example I like to use for this is Netflix. If you were writing an application that had to play movies for a couple people, you could just design an application and whip that together. There are a lot of frameworks and tutorials online where you could easily do this in, maybe even just a couple days. But when you're Netflix, you have millions of people using you on a daily basis. Gigabytes, terabytes, petabytes of data streaming throughout the internet. At this point, it's not just making an application, it is designing your application for millions of people to use and having it be able to process that much data in an efficient manner that doesn't slow down the application and gives everyone good performance, okay? That requires engineering fundamentals. That requires data structures and algorithms and knowledge of like computer systems and distributed computing, things like that. And so that is the separation between a software engineer and a software developer. Software developers can write code and put together applications, sure. Software engineers are particularly equipped to solve really complex problems, often computational and mathematical in nature, especially for problems of scale and complexity. Subsequently, because there's a difference in the amount of difficulty in work between the two jobs, it's easier and faster to become a plain software developer. It's going to take you a lot more time to become a software engineer, and most of the top elite tech companies need software engineers to work for them, not just plain old software developers. It also depends on the type of industry you want to work for too. In a future video, we're going to discuss the different positions and the different concentrations, etc. But depending on the industry you join, for example, machine learning, AI, game and graphics development, those fields require the engineering fundamentals. Those fields require that more in-depth knowledge that separate the engineer from the developer. So keep that in mind as you go through your entire software development and education journey. Depending on what you're gunning for, you're going to have different expectations of what you need to learn and how long it's going to take as well.